okay? All right. Hopefully that's better. Well, good evening. Welcome to the Redwood Area Education Foundation's 2023 Hall of Fame induction ceremony. For 25 years, we have recognized outstanding alumni, school staff, and community members who in some way have made a very significant impact on our youth, or on improving our communities, or making the world a better place. Established in 1998, the Hall of Fame event has evolved into an amazing event recognizing the best of the best. Since the beginning, we've inducted 103 individuals into the Hall of Fame. All candidates for induction are submitted through a well-defined application process that everyone can find on the Foundation's website, so please check that out if you haven't been there. Once a nomination is properly submitted, the candidates are vetted by a selection committee. A rigorous review follows that can lead to induction. There are many deserving candidates representing all three categories, and the selection committee is always looking for more, so give that some thought. Please consider nominating someone if you believe they may be deserving. This afternoon, we have gathered together to recognize 4 individuals who have had a significantly positive impact on others. These honorees have demonstrated a lifetime of service and commitment to improving education for youth and/or for their communities. They have done significant work to make the school district, community, or the world a better place. We are extremely proud to formally include their accomplishments as a significant part of our history by inducting them into the Redwood Area Hall of Fame. I know we're going to have a reception afterwards, and if you aren't familiar with the building, if you walk up the stairs above the Commons area, you'll see the Wall of Fame there. There's several granite plaques, and all 103 individuals who have already been inducted have their story recorded there. I am extremely humbled to be able to have been offered the opportunity to MC our induction program this afternoon. And I feel more than honored to have personally worked alongside some of the honorees, or I've heard from people who knew them personally. And this is truly a deserving group. Our first inductee this afternoon is in the category of staff and faculty. From 1983 through 2015, Barb Sellevold was a highly effective special education teacher and counselor in the Redwood Area School District. For 32 years, Barb worked in the most delicate of situations with students and their families. Barb demonstrated a highly regarded understanding of the significance of interpersonal relationships. A 1969 graduate of Slayton High School, Barb earned a bachelor's degree at Minnesota State University, Mankato, and a master's degree in guidance and counseling from Tarleton State University in Texas. Her time in the Redwood Area School District began as a high school special education teacher and evolved into a special education specialist, providing leadership for our K-12 EBD programs. In 1991, Barb made a natural transition to the school counselor position, and she held that title until her retirement in 2015. Throughout her years of service, the contributions Barb made to students, families, and staff were significant. Recognized as a tireless and aggressive advocate of students and families who were in need, Barb worked in creative and collaborative ways to develop and establish programs for students who were in need. She developed some programs on her own, and some in collaboration with others, but all of her work was keenly focused on meeting the needs of students. Some of these programs included in-house special education programs. She worked with Margie Buckley to start the Alternative Learning Program. She developed numerous support groups and highly successful middle school home-based program. Several of these programs are still in place today, serving students. Throughout her years, Barb influenced the lives of young people, doing so with a genuine sincerity, compassion, authenticity, and concern for the students' well-being. Barb's office was recognized by all, students and staff alike, as a safe place for people to visit, especially if they were experiencing difficult or challenging times. Barb continuously and consistently built relationships with students and staff. The foundation of each of those relationships were the qualities of trust and honesty. At times, she was more than direct, and at other times, she was gentle as a kitten. As superintendent of schools during the time that Barb worked here, I recall several times when the door to my office would swing open after we had some meeting with another group, and Barb would begin the conversation with, "Ellingworth, what are we doing now?" Now that's if she was just marginally concerned. If she was really concerned, the door would open, it would start with several expletives, and then she would say, "Ellingworth, what are we doing now?" I can honestly attest that while she wasn't always right, Barb was always courageous, committed, and unrelenting on behalf of those she worked so diligently to serve. In 2002, Barb was recognized by the Minnesota State Counselors as the Minnesota State Counselor of the Year, and that same year she was recognized as the Southwest Minnesota Division Counselor of the Year. She was active in numerous volunteer positions on many local boards in our communities and around the state. Now retired, Barb currently resides in Akeley, Minnesota with her husband John. John was our business manager for many years. Their family includes son Brett and his wife Tracy, and 4 grandchildren, Josh, Jake, Emma, and Caitlin, and I think Emma and Caitlin are here today. So it's my distinct privilege and honor to induct Barb Sellevold into the Redwood Area Schools Hall of Fame, and I welcome you to the podium now.
Well, Rick kind of covered it. He covered everything I was going to say except the thank yous to people. He and John, when John was here, had a big joke, ha. I'd walk through his door and he'd say to John, "Well, here's your wife. Does she think she's my school counselor today, or does she think she's the assistant superintendent?" And generally John would say, "I'm sure she thinks she's the assistant superintendent." So when he said the word aggressive, I thought, well, I could explain that further, but really he did it for me. And I agree, I was not always an easy employee, but I was a very, probably a good advocate for kids, more kids than adults, and I wanted really to take this time to thank some people. I have this little piece of paper that I made up. On the back it says wine, and it has our confirmation room numbers. And on the front it has all the people I want to thank. Back's not very full, front is loaded. So if I miss someone, please know that everybody that I touched when I was here, students, staff, families, were very important to me and continue to be. And one of the most important parts of my life, from day one to the end of time, will be my family that's here. My partner John, my sister Nancy and her husband Gary, who came all the way from Colorado. We bribed them with a little golfing while they're here. My wonderful daughter-in-law Tracy and son Brett, who is a Redwood Valley High School graduate, and my oldest granddaughter Emma. She's at University of Iowa, as a sophomore. Caitlin, who's a senior at Shakopee High School. And somewhere, at some point in time, Jacob will be coming. He's a little bit late. And there he is. Come on down, Jake. I'm sure he's really going to give me the business on this one. Jake had a business interview today, and then Josh is working, the oldest grandson. So, Jake, you just come right in front if you want to. I'm really proud of you. Okay, that takes care of my family. I also want to tell you that my mom and dad have a lot to do with the way all of us are, including Nancy, I have a brother Scott, myself, Brett, everybody in our family. I'm sort of like my mom, sort of a lot like my mom. So those of you that knew my mom, sorry, John. Here she is. The other person that's really special to me, and I'm really glad to be honored with her tonight, is Linda Zick. Support staff here, Linda Zick being my office manager, good friend. When things started crumbling and falling apart and kids really needed all of the staff for all the things they were dealing with, Linda Zick was there to keep the guidance office running. And you have no idea what that takes. And on a daily basis, she was my buddy and the person that closed my door when my voice got too loud and gave me a hug and listened to me, and we shed tears together. So thanks, Lindy. She's very special. We're very lucky we had her. Rick and the other administration are also the ones that I want to thank, because truly there aren't probably a lot of places I could have worked for this many years and felt this blessed, this understood, and had been able to advocate for kids with a very loud mouth most of the time. And he seemed to understand me better than anybody else, along with some very understanding principals, Don Yurjo being the one that was here the longest with me. Many middle school principals. And I can honestly say that while I've been in Redwood Valley, I haven't really worked with an administrator that hasn't got me and I haven't gotten them. So I think that in itself is a wonderful tribute to the school district. Also the school boards, I had some really favorite school board members. Chico Jensen, who I know nominated me, and when I first came, John Tiffany, John Buckley, Dr. Tom Gross. I mean, those were some stellar people that kept the district on track through thick and thin and good times and not so good times. Leela Carpin was my secretary when Linda left. She was excellent. She also kept me out of trouble. Linda Zoig in the high school office was really important to me, as well as the middle school. The one that was there the longest was Mary Liebel, and of course we all know she's just a doll. So I'd be remiss not offering them my thanks. And then a really special team of people that became my family, my support, my colleagues, and my best team members. And that would be Ken Meister, who mentored me. And Ken was like this. Ken was a gift to counseling because there wasn't anything Ken didn't understand. And on the days when I was like this, Ken kept me grounded. So thanks a lot, Mr. Meister. I appreciate those years. When Ken left, Rachel Karnitz came, and she and I clicked very well. And then she moved on, and Amber Green and Allie Carlson came into the guidance office, and they too were wonderful. The team that I'm talking about was the team that got us through the years when we were losing students and we had to pick up the pieces and move on with the kids that were gone. And that would be Cindy Sorenga, Jen Otto, Amber Green, Allie Carlson, Erin Johnson was the school psychologist, and then Carrie Scheffler took her place. Dana Woodford was a wonderful SRO during those years. And then of course, I'd have to mention Margie Buckley. Because when my years in Redwood, I did a lot of different things. And I did a lot of different things because a lot of people said, let's do this. And because I've always been a little alternative, when the idea of an alternative learning center came up, I certainly wanted to be a part of it. And Margie Buckley was the director, and I actually got back to some teaching because I taught in the alternative program for a number of years when Margie was director, and we had a lot of fun with those kids. And I admired those kids especially because, number one, they came back into a school building to finish their education. They came here after school hours, and they came here because they convinced us that they wanted to do this. And so that will always be a really special group of kids for me that I know have moved on. I'm a big Facebook person, and so I have a lot of contact with my former students. I know when Logan Zasky catches a big fish. I know when Pat Toth goes on a hunting trip. I know when Holly Larson takes on a new responsibility or is still running or doing whatever she does in 24 hours a day. So that's been really fun for me. I have some fond memories of teaching staff that did a lot more than teaching. They didn't just teach the subjects that they were certified in, they taught the kids that were in their classrooms. And because of that, my job was very easy. I could go to any staff member at any point in time and ask for a special favor or something special for a student. And they rarely, sometimes they'd say, whoa, explain yourself, Barb. But they'd rarely say, no, that can't be done, and we did it. And one Christmas, we had a student who was living on her own, actually taking care of a couple of her younger siblings, and she needed a car to get to school. And she was very deserving. And with a little help, I thought she could do great things. And she has done great things. She has her own family, and I was invited to her son's graduation today. But instead of giving to share the spirit that year, we decided as staff that we would raise money and buy this little girl some junk car that she could come to school in. And we did that. And we also supported her in other ways. So that's just one example of the kind of staff that I worked with, and I really appreciated. I also worked with probation, with social services, with private counselors in the community, and there again, Redwood's a very special community, and I think that'll continue. I walked through the door of the Career Center, and it's an amazing facility for kids coming back and pursuing a career and getting a head start on it. So I have some student heroes, and there's more, but 5 minutes goes fast. But Abby Baker Bowden is one of my student heroes, and she's still around. Jonathan Moore, who would be here tonight, but had some complications. Holly Larson, which I mentioned before, and Mike and Emily Davis, who will always be lifelong friends. In fact, when John and I decided to move up north to the lake, we were older, right, John? So Mike Davis, with a couple of his buddies, Sean Parker and Sean Peters, delivered a bunch of furniture at Twist. Came to our house here, put the furniture in the truck, sent us on our way, and then came and delivered some furniture to us. And so those are the kind of relationships that probably not just educators make, but we certainly as educators have the opportunity to make those kinds of ties with students. And I think the only thing that Hillary Clinton ever said that I would agree with, I'm sure, will be, it takes a village to raise a child. And most of all, I want to thank you, all of you, that I was a part of that village and that you allowed me to help you raise a child. So thank you. Thanks for this honor.
Our next inductee this evening is also in the category of staff and faculty. Linda Zick served as the Guidance Office Secretary from 1988 through 2012. For 24 years, Linda worked closely with students and their families, as well as staff managing the daily tasks of the Guidance Office, as Barb has already indicated. Always one to shy away from taking the credit. The counselors that she worked with would often tell me through the years that Linda would be the first person to be highly instrumental in the development of many post-secondary programs that led Redwood Valley High School graduates on their life journeys. Regardless of what a student intended to do after high school, Linda would work with them to complete post-secondary applications, submit transcripts, and coordinate college conferences designed to help students take the next steps after graduation. In addition, a significant amount of Linda's work was quietly focused behind the scenes on helping the counselors and the principals facilitate the district-wide awards program and scholarship programs that used to be tied to this Hall of Fame induction. A master of multitasking and organization, it seems that all students and staff knew Linda. And most importantly, they knew they could depend on her. Linda was one who seemed to thrive when on a daily basis she was surrounded by chaos. Day in and day out, Linda was counted on to help others meet their needs, and it seemed she always came through. Most everyone who's ever attended a school or worked in a school knows the real people to go to when you have questions about what to do, or when one may have a question about where to go, is the school level secretary or the guidance secretary. It seems they are divinely touched to help others. This was certainly true in Linda's case, as she was broadly recognized as having a wonderful attitude always, and having a genuine compassion for others, always providing an impeccable quality of work. Linda was a high-performing employee who exceeded expectations and always encouraged others to do what was in the best interest of students and staff. She also didn't hesitate to encourage others to make good long-term choices and to stick with those choices and be proud of the decisions that they made. For more than 2.5 decades, Linda conducted herself with dignity, integrity, honesty, and class. She was highly regarded and loved by students and staff alike. Always supportive, Linda's work ethic and values inspired others to be better than they otherwise may have been. She served as the best kind of example for others to follow. Outside of her time in the district, Linda has served as a volunteer for a variety of community programs, including Redwood Falls Library, Friends of the Library, Share the Spirit, and many committees at St. John Lutheran Church. Linda currently resides in Redwood Falls with her husband, Gary. Linda is the mother of 2 daughters, Lisa Cerny and her husband, Dell, and Lori Zick, as well as being a grandmother to granddaughters Alicia, Madison, and Sadie. It's a distinct privilege and honor to induct Linda Zick into the Redwood Area Schools Hall of Fame.
Unlike Barb, I can't wing it. So every word is written down and I'll try to read it. Thank you, Rick. Congratulations to Barb, Chuck, and to Mr. Greenslit. It's very humbling for me to be here in front of you this evening. And I want to thank the Hall of Fame Selection Committee and those who wrote such kind letters of support for allowing me this opportunity. Thank you to Rachel for all the planning and effort you put forward to make this induction ceremony successful and a memorable event. I'm very grateful for the support of my husband Gary and touched that our daughter Lori has traveled from Colorado and gave up her daughter's homecoming rugby game, and to our daughter Lisa, who gave up the first family university weekend to be here with me. Our son-in-law, Dell, and our oldest granddaughter, Alicia, are making the visit to South Carolina without her. Our three granddaughters, Alicia, as Rick mentioned, she's a UND graduate, and she works as a flight instructor in Grand Forks, North Dakota. Her sister Madison is a freshman at the University of South Carolina, and Lori's daughter Sadie is a junior at Summit County High School, Colorado. I know they're here in spirit. It also warms my heart to have other family and friends in attendance this afternoon, especially my brother and sister-in-laws and brother-in-law. Working at the school first began for me way back in the 70s as a Reed Gray playground aide. That was a fun experience, being with the kids as they came out to burn off energy after eating lunch. Then in 1988, I once again had the opportunity to become an employee at the school as a part-time secretary for the guidance office. It was a big job, and I tried to fill the shoes of Isla Stramo. I have so many fond memories of those early days working with Phil Hall and Ken Meister. They both taught me so much about compassion for all the kids who came into the guidance office, the necessity of confidentiality, and the perspective to assist with the wide variety of issues that came through the school doors. We had lots of fun too. Many times we would start the day by enjoying the delicious cookies made by Mrs. Heiling, or the tasty cinnamon biscuits that I would pick up from the new Hardee's drive-thru back in the day. In the fall of 1991, we made the huge move out to the new school, and we transitioned to the middle school, high school, except for Mr. Hall, who retired. Barb Sellevold joined Ken and me in the guidance office. Barb was a great addition, and we all quickly became friends, work family, and a team helping students navigate all the stuff that school and life can bring. Over the years, I worked with so many compassionate and dedicated professionals who became close friends. Since retiring in 2012, I often run into students who remember me. I can usually say, I can't say your name, but I remember your face or the time you spent by my desk in the school office. And then we have fun reminiscing. I couldn't have had a better place to work than at the school. I ran across a comment the other day that really is fitting. It said, there's a difference between doing a job to just get paid and doing a job because you love the people. For 24 years, I was lucky to have both. Thank you again.
Our next inductee this afternoon is in the category of community, but he also could be in the alumni category. Chuck Lussenhop was born and raised in Redwood Falls, graduating from the Redwood Falls High School in 1961. Chuck was a three-sport athlete participating in football, basketball, and golf. He earned 10 athletic letters during his high school years. As a sophomore, he was a member of the 1959 state championship golf team. Chuck will tell you he played with some fantastic athletes who became great teammates and lifelong friends. Upon graduation, Chuck received an invitation from the University of Minnesota basketball program, and he attended classes there, both there and later at Gustavus Adolphus College. It was during that time that Chuck decided to pursue a career in construction, more specifically bridge construction. For over 57 years, Chuck has constructed or rehabbed over 200 bridges in southern Minnesota. Chuck is currently semi-retired, but remains involved in the bridge building business. Chuck was also a member of the Minnesota Army Reserves for 6 years before being discharged as a staff sergeant. Through the years, Chuck has remained an integral part of the school district's athletic programs. If you have attended even one Redwood Valley basketball game in the past 41 years, you most likely have witnessed Chuck operating the clock at the scorer's table. It turns out to be over 2,100 basketball games to date, and we are still counting. By no means is Chuck an arrogant guy, but as the chief clock operator, he proudly proclaimed to me more than once that in all these years, he's never missed a second on that clock. Chuck's amazing service and commitment in support of our athletic program is significant. And in 2011, he was deservedly recognized by the Minnesota State High School League with their Distinguished Service Award. Chuck's many years of dedication is uncommon. A guy who enjoys things the way they are. Chuck has been a Redwood Falls resident and member of his church for 80 years. A business owner and bridge builder for 57 years. A basketball score clock timer for 41 years. And a Gopher season ticket holder for 40 years. Chuck has attended the Minnesota State High School basketball tournament for 7 decades. This tradition started when he was a young boy attending state tournaments with his dad, and it continues today as he still holds his state tourney season tickets. More important than all of the aforementioned accolades, Chuck is one of the kindest, most genuine, and humble human beings to ever walk the face of this earth. Chuck and his wife, Mary Jane, currently reside in Redwood Falls. They have 3 children, Deb, Lori, and Rob, all of whom graduated from Redwood Falls. Their family also includes son-in-law Mark and grandsons Daniel and Jake. Chuck says Redwood Falls has been good to him, and we're very proud to recognize Chuck for his commitment to Redwood Falls and the Redwood Area School District. It is my distinct privilege and honor to induct Charles Chuck Lussenhop into the Redwood Area Schools Hall of Fame. And speaking for Chuck will be his son, Rob.
Well, as you can see, I brought along my designated speaker.
And that's the most public speaking he's done in the 51 years that I've been on the planet. So, my name is Rob Lussenhop. I'm the youngest of the 3 kids, and my dad is certainly beyond humbled for the honor. And then I get the call because my sisters can't pull it off. So a couple of plane tickets, a rental car, a couple nights hotel later, here I am. And I wanted to commend Coach Ellingworth, who I always know as coach. This has got to be the calmest I ever remember you on a Friday at 6 o'clock on a homecoming football night, and Coach Dottero's out here somewhere too. Same goes for you. I never remember you with gray hair, but you got a bunch of it now, so that's good. But we're super happy, and we've had a ton of relatives. My fiance Stephanie and my stepdaughter to be Summerlin are here. My sisters Lori and Deb, my mom, Uncle Jim and Aunt Jeannie, cousin Lisa, Chris, Jason, Carolyn. The Minnesota Twins must not be playing tonight because Norma Kruger is or do we got to get you out of here? The first pitch is coming up. And I do know, had my dad known that the Sellevolds were going to bring an Iowa Hawkeye fan, I'm going to guess he doesn't show at this thing tonight. But it's you know, my dad is in the community category, and the one thing my heart goes out to all 4 inductees and families of inductees, because how could you ever get through the stories and the memories and this and that to get inducted to the Hall of Fame? So when I got home from the Minneapolis airport last night and I saw the 31 pages of notes that were on the kitchen table on legal pads, front and back, I said, we might need to condense this down a little bit, Dad. So we're just gonna kind of hit the highlights here and have some fun. And again, I'm just honored to be able to do this, for my dad. And I can't believe they grabbed the microphone and said anything, because my first thing is, if you know my dad, he's too humbled and he would never do public speaking. So that was really good. I don't know if Virgil Felt is in the crowd, but that's top-notch effort by him. And that's really is why my sisters wouldn't do this, because we heard you might be here and we thought there's critiques on the back end of this. But as Coach said, my dad has been in the community for 80 years, and the entire family kind of knows him. He's like a no-change guy. Nothing has ever really changed with my dad. And so I was looking back at his notes and putting my own thoughts in there. A member of the community for 80 years, a member of the church for 80 years, and taught me how to play golf. And he built all these bridges, and how do those things mix? And when we were coming from the airport last night, we went through Gaylord, Minnesota. And I said to Stephanie, I said, this is about where my dad would pull the car over on the way back from Gopher games and walk 3 laps around the car so he could wake back up, because we were coming back from a Gopher game back when they shared the dome with the Vikings and the Twins. They always played late. And we were going to church Sunday morning at 8 o'clock. So we pull over, Dad would do a few laps, and we get home. In the summers at church, it went from 2 services down to 1 service at 9 a.m. And he had a standing deal with me that he would caddy for me every Sunday morning, as long as we were back home in time to get cleaned up by 9 o'clock and be at church. And I had to volunteer for 1 month of ushering at the church, and he always helped it. Now, a few times I would slap the sand in frustration, and I got left at the golf course at about 6:30 in the morning, but I'm sure that those were all lessons I needed to learn. He's built bridges for 60 years, which is 59 years and 11 months longer than I lasted building bridges with my dad. He loved it. He loved the work of it. He loved the concrete pour of it. He loved getting up in the morning and doing it. I hated it. The hammer never fit my hands. It interfered with my summer of golf. But 200 bridges, and what a lot of people don't know, later on in his bridge building career, he would get permission to paint the bridges in the colors of the biggest high school in that county. So there's a bridge that's painted pipestone colors, and there's a bridge somewhere painted Slayton colors, and they're all hanging on our wall at home. But I thought, that what a thing for community, because community, I think, for my dad is probably all of southern Minnesota. It certainly includes the community of Morton and the Lower Sioux Reservation for us. Those are communities to us. And he's such his love of high school athletics and college athletics took it right down to can I paint the bridge green and white level. They have lived in the same house for 55 years. Gallus Drive is where we grew up. That's where we know to be home. As Coach said, they've attended the state basketball tournament for 70 years. Something that started with my grandpa Lussenhop, Grandpa Carl, and my mom and dad still go to the tournament every year now. My dad, though, despite the fact that he loves to go to the state tournament, he is a Redwood Falls, Morton, Redwood Valley. He's a fan of Redwood first, fan of this community first, and I think has loved the time that he has spent in the community and around the athletes. He never calls anybody a good player or a great player. You have to be upper echelon to hear that out of his mouth. What he calls them is, that's a nice player. And I think that's pretty good, because that talks about their conduct on the floor, their etiquette towards their coach, how they present themselves. But every once in a while you'll get a call, boy, he is a nice player. And if he uses his finger, you know he's an extremely nice player. Phenomenal basketball player, as all of you know if you're from the Redwood area. My dad was a phenomenal basketball player. And my grandmother once told me a story, and this kind of gets into no change, that when everybody else growing up was out building snow forts when it was 10 below, or going ice skating, or doing whatever they were going to do in the winter months, every morning my dad got up, put 3 basketballs on the heat register, which was underneath the kitchen table, so that when he got home from school, they would be warm and he could shoot baskets. Because at 10 below, the balls would go flat too quick. And he had 3, and it's the first thing he did every morning. And he played golf, but I don't want to talk about my dad's golf, because I think my golf might have been Lisa Zick is in the crowd. He went to the state tournament, the team won. But I have about 3, Lisa, you know, we had like 3 district championships myself. But that team did win the 1959 state championship, and they had Les Peterson and Al Kruger, a phenomenal team. And my dad played in the 61 state golf tournament. He won the regional that year as an individual. But I think if you got talking to my dad, he'd want to talk football and basketball, in particular basketball. And when he talks about that's a nice player, that's a spectacular player. Spectacular doesn't happen out of his mouth, but we have Pat Corbett here tonight. And Mr. Corbett, my dad considers a spectacular player. Not a nice player, a spectacular player. And he was on that 61 team. And we bring up the 61 team because they won the District 10 championship that year. And I know Dad did a little research. That District 10 championship title game was won in overtime, and it was the last game, at least we can find, in the state of Minnesota. And today he told me he's done more research. We think now in the nation that overtime was played in sudden death. First basket wins, and that was the 1961 team from Redwood. So now sports is over, we're building bridges. He gets a call from Dale Scholl about 40 years ago. And Dale Scholl, who was my junior high principal, says to Dad, "We need a clock operator. Is that something you'd be interested in?" And my dad said, "Well, yeah, I'll try that out." And there's 3 requirements for that job. The first is you need to know the rules of basketball. Check the box, we're good there. The second is be nonpartisan. And you wrote these down, like you had them, you still have those sitting in your... Be nonpartisan, sit quietly with no remarks to players, coaches, or officials. Which amazingly is the same instructions that I would get when I had to go watch my sisters in gymnastics or a band concert. So Mr. Scholl was ahead of his time. And the third was you have to be reliable and be on time. And I'm like, I don't know that they even needed to tell him that. So after 40 years and over 2,100 games timed, he'd kind of like to know, is he in? Like, do you know if you have a job this winter? Yeah. Okay, he's like, okay. And I don't know if you want me to say this, but I know when I was in high school and college and home, the first thing he does after a basketball game, or at least he used to, is come into the house. My mom would get a snack or something prepared. My dad would go down to the bedroom, come right back to the kitchen. Say, Dad, why did you go to the bedroom? Well, I keep the remote timer in my sock drawer. There's only 2, I don't want anybody touching mine. And he said the same thing to me. They say he's never missed a second, and he's like, Rob, my reflexes are cat-like. But he was honored by the Minnesota State High School League for that work in 2011. And I think that was a fantastic honor for him. But he's so close to the athletes in the school and the community. A couple of years ago, and I don't really know when, I remember seeing it. The players all signed, autographed the basketball for him, or Redwood Valley basketball for him, and presented that to him. And I'm not so sure if that's not a bigger honor for him than the Minnesota State High School League, to have it here. This is page 3 of 27, so I don't know how long this is. So those are kind of some of the no change things. And then I thought, I think my dad told me that my Aunt Jeannie, they came in from Seattle, mentioned if you're going to do some comments about your dad's a no change guy, you might want to mention that he's had the same haircut for 75 years. So I got that in there for you, Aunt Jeannie. A couple things that he told me today that he is willing to change. And I know he's very fond of these guys. It's Coach Lundeen, Coach Ferrier, and Coach Lindahl. He said there's 2 things. He has now accepted the move from Memorial Field to the new football complex. And has his mind around them playing basketball games in the new gym. However, he wanted to remind everybody that when they were demolishing the school, I graduated in '90, so it was shortly thereafter, he did go in and cut out a big section of the floor, the basketball floor, and we have that somewhere at the house. But we do have that. I think my dad is super, super proud of the contributions he's made to the school and to the community. And my mom once made a comment to the girls and I, Deb and Lori, I've called them the girls for 50 years, so the girls and I, that I don't think we're ever going to know really the contributions that my dad's made to the community of the school, because there's no way he'd tell us, and we would just never know. And my dad did he got a card and a letter from one of his other teammates, Mr. Corbett. He got a call, a letter from Mr. Ramseth, Paul Ramseth. And I think this kind of sums it up. The community and being in a town like Redwood and Morton, that a coach once told them, and when my dad explained this to me, he was using his finger, so I'll use my finger, because I think I've heard this from him too. You want to talk about privilege, and you see privileged people and privileged kids, and you think you know privilege. You do not know privilege until you've been in a town like Redwood Falls. And you don't know it now, but you'll know it at some time. Now my sisters, they kind of migrated to Minneapolis. I've been all over the country. And I get home about once a year. And you really pull into Redwood Falls, and that lesson sinks in pretty quick when you get to be in the community. In a short little closing here, I'd just like to say a few things. I'd like to congratulate all the inductees, Mrs. Zick, Mrs. Sellevold, and the Greenslit family. And I will say this. My dad said, Mr. Greenslit was a few years older than me, but I love going down to Morton and watch him compete. He was a nice player. I'd also like to say thank you to Rachel for coordinating this event. From a guy that's coordinated a few events in my career, it's a lot to pull off and a lot to coordinate, and I think no one ever realizes what really goes behind the scenes. So to Rachel and her staff, a phenomenal event, and thank you for the invitation. And I'd like to thank our family with, there is no dad without mom. So in exchange for trips to Hawaii, she got to go to bridge sites, run around southern Minnesota turning in bridge bids, answering the phone, doing the banking, going to more games, watching my dad time, sitting by herself. Countless Gopher games where vacation has ended up being, well, I hope they go to a bowl game so we can go to Nashville again. And all the things that it took to, like I was never that much trouble, but my sisters, just to raise the three of us while my dad was out working. So thank you to my mom. We had a card arrive in the mailbox the other day, and it was actually, Mr. Felt will know this, was actually from one of my sister Lori's best friends. Came from Barrett Norman, who I think you referred to as Lori and Barrett as Grin in Barrett all through high school. And Barrett sent my dad a card. And I just am going to close with Barrett's quote that she left for my dad. And what Barrett said was, Chuck not only builds bridges, but serves as a foundation holding up the bridge for so many youth to enjoy sports. And I think that summarizes just a grain of sand of what he means to the community and to all of us. And I just thank you for allowing me to come tonight. And congratulations, Dad, on getting into the Hall of Fame.
Bill Greenslit. Is that on? William Bill Greenslit is our final inductee this evening in the category of an alumni. Bill is honored posthumously, having passed away October 17th of 2015. Bill Greenslit graduated from Morton High School in 1957. Known as one of the most highly decorated athletes in Morton school history, Bill was a member of the football, basketball, baseball, and track teams. During the 1957 state track meet, Bill became a state champion in the 100-yard dash, placed second in the 180-yard low hurdles, and finished fourth in the 220-yard dash. As the only Morton participant at the 1957 state track meet, Bill accounted for all 11 team points and qualified for a third-place team finish behind Minneapolis-Washburn and St. Paul Central High School. This was quite a feat considering he was a kid from a school that did not have a track and only had 3 hurdles. Nothing prevented Bill, though, from getting better. Legend has it that he wore paths in the grass at the Morton City Park as he practiced events on a regular basis in the spring. Because of both his academic and athletic achievements, Bill was highly recruited by a number of colleges and chose to continue his studies and athletic career at St. Olaf College in Northfield, Minnesota. With the Olies, Bill lettered in basketball, football, and track at the collegiate level. The Olies named him the most valuable football player and captain of their football team. His 100-yard dash track records in college still stand today, as he ran the 100 in 9.7 seconds. And it's going to stand forever because a few years later, they quit running the 100-yard dash and changed it to the 100-meter dash. And I actually remember when all that happened. St. Olaf recognized Bill with his induction into the St. Olaf Athletic Hall of Fame in 2002. Eventually, Bill went on to earn his master's degree in education. His personal success on the athletic fields carried into his teaching and coaching careers at New Ulm and later at Irondale, Mounds View High Schools. In addition to teaching, Bill coached the track and cross-country teams during those years. His impact was significant and it was lasting. To this day, each spring, the Mounds View School District hosts the Greenslit Relays in honor of his commitment to the school district and the sport of track and field. Bill spent nearly 40 years in education. He lived and modeled the values of character and commitment in his role as a teacher and coach. Every chance he had, he took the high road, the one less traveled, to positively impact students and colleagues whose paths he crossed. Although I didn't know Bill personally, my neighbor, a guy named Dave Ryder, who was also inducted into the Hall of Fame here several years ago together with his wife Pat, used to share legendary stories in our backyard about being in school when Bill Greenslit was in school, and how it was an honor to run on some of the same state relay teams with Bill back in the day. Bill is survived by his wife Karen, children Dr. Mark Greenslit and his wife Lisa, daughter Heather Rosenfield and her husband Scott, and daughter Dr. Sarah Greenslit, as well as Karen's son, Michael, and 8 grandchildren. It is my distinct privilege and honor to induct Bill Greenslit posthumously into the Redwood Area Schools Hall of Fame. And Bill's brother John is here tonight to speak on his behalf.
Everybody, oh, that's too loud, I'm sorry. What an honor. Rick, you captured most of my notes, and some of you waiting to go to the buffet are happy for that. My mother always liked Billy best. I had all the records in Morton, and he broke them. But I'm not angry about it. Congratulations to our fellow honorees. This is an amazing group. It's just absolutely amazing. I nominated Bill thinking this was an athletic Hall of Fame. And I was extremely pleased to see the turn of events, particularly in today's society, to honor education, the mission of the foundation, basically to provide opportunity to succeed, crosses every discipline, and I think I might be an example of that as an equal career in education. And when I left that to go into association management and state government, all the things that I learned in education applied to any career that I wanted to get into. I kind of feel like Elizabeth Taylor's 7th husband after these speakers. I know what I'm supposed to do on the honeymoon, but I wouldn't know how to make it interesting. Crew, raised cattle, pigs, corn, whatever it might be. He went over to Wabasso to buy a combine. And the farmer said, where are you from? Morton. Morton, that's where they got all those good Indian kids, them Greenslits and them Good Thunders. Well, the unique thing about it was he didn't know he was talking to the mayor of Morton, a member of the school board, and the father of 3 of those Indians. Something we found out later, and you mentioned the Lower Sioux Agency. I never knew this until maybe 20 years ago. Richard Goodthunder was a wonderful athlete, a year ahead of me. A great distance man, played basketball, could really score. My dad waited alone, without any publicity, after practice, to give Richard a ride back up the hill. The buses weren't running. I never knew that. And then when
we called him Itchy, went in the Army, as most Native American kids had to do. He came back, and I think he became the barber of Morton forever and forever and forever. So what a privilege. To the honorees, Satchel Paige, I said, very well. It ain't bragging if you done it. And you done it. Congratulations for all of you. The honorees, I feel, there's a commercial years ago that said, you earned it the old-fashioned way. That's how you got there. You worked hard. And that's reflected in your accomplishments. I took some graduate work at Mankato State in statistics. I hated undergrad and I just breezed through the master's program. My first statistics class I was afraid, just terrified. You know, I hadn't gotten by, buying groceries at the Morton grocery store. The instructor came in, his name was Djurdjevic. And he said, I want to encourage you to have a great year, but remember this always. Any jackass can kick down a barn, but it takes a carpenter to build one. That's what you're doing here in Redwood. I was approached as a senior in high school by Lauren Waugh, one of your old coaches. And he and my dad used to go to the Morton liquor store secretly and encouraged me to transfer to Redwood to play my senior year. It didn't happen. And we had a wonderful career down there. I'm pleased to recognize Dave Ryder. On the relay team, Bill led it off. He always had the lead. Dave was the second leg. Tom Mace was third. And I ran anchor, fourth. We won our heat at the state meet. We won it. Except we had dropped the baton between Tom and me. I had to go back and pick it up. Our finish made headlines in the Minneapolis Tribune, but we didn't get any ribbons. And so that achievement down there, 2 years later when Bill came to follow it up, he won the low hurdles. The judges gave him first place. One of the Washburn coaches went to the referee. There were no films, there were no videos. They overruled the judges and gave Bill second. And Bill, in his humility, which is kind of rare in our family, he basically said, I finished second. The difference in points would have put him right behind Washburn. Second from Morton, a track title for a young man that didn't have a track and didn't have hurdles. His older brother Lee is here, who was the Midwest Conference high hurdle champion at St. Olaf. You mentioned Karen's name. Our family's up front. It's one of the greatest things we have going. I think I'll share with you all of these. You mentioned Mark, Heather, Sarah. Boy, that's a trifecta if you ever got one. A doctor, a highly educated, multi-language educator, and a veterinarian of 3 kids. That's amazing. And sometimes I take credit for it, which I can't. I'm pleased to join Bill with Jim Gallery. You don't know this, and no reason why you would. My part-time job in high school was to deliver milk in Morton, house to house, then come to the Super Value in Redwood to stock the cooler. My boss was Bob Gallery. We worked awful hard. Then I was honored by being the commencement speaker in 1980 at his graduation. And it was an amazing thing. And of course, we all remember Dean Tate, who had the largest key ring of anybody in Renville County. If you needed to open the door, go to Dean. What an amazing inspiration. He would mow the grass, he would line the grass, we'd get dressed. The only thing I objected to was one year we had to walk in the homecoming parade in the band and then change clothes and play the game. But that happens in a lot of schools. I want to close with a couple of things. I've tried to give some thought to what Bill would think in today's society as an educator. And if I might, Mr. Chairman, share that with you briefly. As your objective mentioned, to support opportunities, and I added, but not obstacles in education. That's our role. Bill would buy more books. He wouldn't ban them. He would choose to make history, not erase it. He would want to provide more resources, not cut back on a budget crunch. He would believe in every phase of a curriculum, and there would be nothing extra about this. It would be all part of the game. One of my early careers was to teach in St. James. We had a superintendent there that said, we're having every extracurricular activity at 11 o'clock every day, so every kid could try out for whatever they wanted in that season, get on the bus at 3 o'clock and go home and do chores. I had 90 kids out for track because they didn't want to go to study hall. So, concluding in just a couple of comments, I just read a book by Tom Brokaw, and he has a great quote at the end of one of his many books. He came out of a little town called Pickstown. Pickstown is where they built the Oahu Dam. There are probably less people in Pickstown than there are in Morton. People in Michigan, where I live, ask about where's Morton. And I say, well, it's about halfway between Sioux Falls and Minneapolis. When I grew up, we had a flashing yellow. We couldn't afford a red or green. And then as you came by the liquor store, there was a sign, welcome to Morton. And then right below it, it said, resume speed. So, if I might just share one thing that I hope ties this together, Mr. Chairman. My daughter Christy came home years ago as a sophomore. There wasn't Title IX yet. They had just started it to let girls participate. And she came home and said, Dad, the coach, as a sophomore, wants me to try out for the swim team. A Greenslit swimming? Oh, okay. 2 days later, she came home and said, I made the JV team. Well, she didn't realize if you didn't make the varsity, everybody made the JV team. And she came home 2 days later and said that the coach is going to let me swim the 200 individual medley and the 100 butterfly. The coach didn't even know me, and he gave my kid the 2 worst strokes on the team. Well, the JV teams met on Wednesday nights. I had an executive job so I could sneak out to go to the post office, which was always one of her meets. 7 weeks in a row in the Capital Area Conference, I sat in a swimming pool with at least 25 mothers. Hot, sticky, ugly, it was just terrible. One meet, she got 4th. One. So it's finally over. I think, oh my God. Give her a hug. You're proud of her. Did a nice job. And she said, Dad, Mary Jo's got mono. Mary Jo's got mono. Okay, how does that fit? Well, she can't compete in the varsity, and the coach is going to move me up in the 200 IM. Well, as you know, in racing, they put the fastest people in the middle of the pool. So I don't think the pool's going to be wide enough for Christy. She's going to be in lane 8. So I go to the meet, and she is in lane 8. And they start off with a breaststroke. She jumped the gun, and they let her go. Because she was in lane 8, who would care? She made the turn and came back and went to the back. Not one of her strongest strokes, but she kind of was fighting for 2nd and 3rd. She was actually leading. My kid was leading. She had to finish 4th to make the finals. They went to the best stroke, and she slid into 4th. And like they do in the marathon, you run out of gas. She had to bring it home in the freestyle. And she went from 4th to 5th to 6th to last place. My kid in lane 8. And I'm sitting there, my next door neighbor's got 3 kids in D1 swimming, 4 stopwatches, poking me on every turn. And And I said, I know she finished last. He said, no, look down there. And I think, I got to get my act together. I'm embarrassed. I went up here and down here. I became a Little League parent. And he said, no, down there. And I looked down, and you're way up high, and you look down at the railing, and here's Christy, bouncing up and down. 4, 4, 4. I said, my God, they disqualified 4 girls. She finished 4th. And I got down to her. I could finally hear what she said, and she said, the thing that ties this together, Dad, I knocked 4 seconds off my fastest time. That's what's important. That's what you do. That's what we do. Congratulations, keep it up.
John, I hope you didn't take the last line of my speech with you there. I think you did. These are Trickster from way back. Well, please join me in showing appreciation to all 4 of our inductees again. It's been wonderful. Congratulations to all of you, and thanks for the presentations on behalf of our inductees, or if you were the inductee, you did a great job. Your dedication and service to our school district and to our communities do not go unnoticed, and they will forever be memorialized on the Wall of Fame outside the district office that I mentioned just a few minutes ago. Thanks to all of you for attending and making this night very special for our 4 inductees. I, as John mentioned, and Rob, I want to thank Rachel Buick. She is the executive director of our foundation, and a lot of folks think these events just happen. As you all know, that's not the case. So please join me in thanking Rachel. And finally, we invite you to join the new members of the Hall of Fame in a reception in our Commons, which is just outside this auditorium. The hors d'oeuvres tonight are provided by Tahoe Food Service, who has been an active and generous supporter of the Redwood Area School District for over 35 years. So again, thank you for coming. Congratulations to the inductees, and enjoy a little social time now.